folks. Welcome to the next edition of Serverless Craic. We are still plowing through the book. Nearly done, actually.
We done, indeed.
That's it.
Chapter
Time
19.
flies. Chapter 19, which is phase 4, long-term values, called Mapping the Emerging Value. This is kind of about the maps. I think it's an interesting topic because you often think that long-term value is just your architectural stuff, but they're actually, once you square the architectural stuff away, you kind of got to think, okay, well, which direction should we go in? What's our direction? And we can totally map this out where things should go. So we kind of did a wee sort of build with a couple of personas and had this scenario of a future CEO, a CEO of a company, and like what do we need to do to be more strategic? And I think it's a nice enough map. So we'll not do the build. Let's just jump
Yeah.
straight to the final map because I think it is. There's this there like whether or not you like this story or not, the way we did it, like we kind of wanted to illustrate this shape, you know what I mean, which I think is interesting. So let's talk through the shape of it.
Yeah.
So if you're following the book, it's figure 19.6, which is in page what is 2-3 something.
233.
233. So the map is I'll talk to you as well. The anchor is a future CEO of a company, and there's 3 value chains. And then at the very bottom, there's 3 pipelines. And the pipelines is usually a capability that evolves. Like there's mindset, and the mindset evolves from project to product.
Yep.
There's an inertia block, which is traditional leadership. And often you'll find traditional leadership will not be able to evolve from project to product mindset because it's just too much of a shift. Now, I must say as well, when Simon was reviewing the book, he says, you got this map wrong. And I think I probably did. I think we probably did. But it's,
In a minute.
Bias for action, Dave, right?
bias for action. But anyway, let's talk about what we were trying to communicate, and you can decide if you think it makes sense or not. So the 3 pipelines are mindset, purpose, and your cloud strategy. I think like the mindset of the organization, how clearly is it a mission focus in the team, or is it like a feature factory for purpose? And then cloud, are you doing the modern stuff or the legacy stuff? So that was the 3 kind of pipelines that this all, and then the 3 value chains. We'll start from right to left. So the most evolved one was sustainable operations. So you think as a CEO, probably job number 1 is sustainable operations. And we put down as dependencies like situational awareness, adaptation, stability, and resilience. So
Yeah.
if your organization, I mean, you need to understand what's happening, ability to adapt, stable processes and teams, and resilience in how you're working. So that's all I'd say. Wouldn't say it's basic because it's very, very hard to do that stuff, but it's, run the business effectively.
Yeah. The ability to execute, right? The ability to get stuff done. Right. You can look this stuff up. You can follow good practice that's already established out there. You can talk to your CEO buddies, and then you can follow a playbook for this stuff.
You can also spend your entire time in here because there's an awful lot of work in here.
Oh yeah.
And again, it's good stuff. But that was that first value chain, sort of sustainable operations. The second one was long-term goals. So you like to say they could also happen in parallel. If you really want to evolve your organization, there's things you might think about like um I suppose a generative org.
Yeah.
So learning, diversity of thought and people, ethics, having a good understanding of ethics, experimentation, which is how you execute, and then psychological safety, obviously environment. I don't think any advanced or less advanced, but they're more people growth mindset type things that are kind of different from the operation stuff.
Yeah. And some of that's around, do you have an environment set up for success? You know, do you have a healthy culture? Do you have a healthy organization that, invites experimentation, invites challenge, invites people to push boundaries and move and have the safety to do that, right? It's and you've got more longer term thinking as well, right? So again, there's a
Mm.
lot of it. Like if you've through all the different phases of the flywheel, right? You've done all the hard yards around clarity of purpose. You've done all the stuff around creating an environment for success. You've done all the work around you're really executing on your next best thing, right? The next most important thing. Now you've actually got a bit of space. If you've gone through the loop a couple of times, you've got a bit of space to actually think more long term and think
Mm.
what is the next value? What's the emerging value we should be going after, right? So it's almost like you're reaping the benefits of all your efforts in the last three phases of the flywheel, right?
Well,
Mm.
it's the, I think this one's important because if you get that one wrong, um, like for example, if you don't have psychological safety or experimentation or, where do you get ambition? What does a good long-term goal look like? Are people encouraged to share their thoughts? Are you encouraged to be ambitious? How do I be ambitious in a safe way? Am I listened to? Like, is the company moving in the right direction? Because it's important that you do set goals, right? But then I think the next kind of
Mm.
value chain is really then how do you make that happen, right?
Yeah.
Because you've seen this here where I've definitely seen this where companies maybe don't set ambitious long-term goals or they're not clear, and
Mm.
it's almost it can be counterproductive, right?
You could also argue this middle one is kind of like a product development, like the product mindset. It's that shift from project to product. Because you could even, because when you're it's one thing when you have a th system in place and you're just trying to make it run correctly, and that's hard in itself, but that's one kind of expertise. The second is when you want to grow something from nothing, create a brand new product, and you do need a lot of these, experimentation, safety, diversity, etc. It's just because it's not
Yeah.
like you just do things. You have to figure out what's the right things to do.
So you're thinking more in terms of like expansion, like so if I've got to get the most out of something, or are we extracting as much value or
I
expanding?
think I think them three value chains, when I look at them now, they're almost like run, grow, transform.
Yeah.
Think of it. The run is the sustainable operations. The grow is almost like product-led growth.
Yep.
And then we'll get the transform in a second, which is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is you're paving the road for the emerging value sort of value chain that we're going to talk about in a minute, right? This is all the hard yards of creating a really high performing organization so that you're not, and we talked about this in the last chapter around creating space for innovation and sustainable operations. You can't free yourself up to go after emerging value if everything's on fire. Right? It's very
Yeah.
hard to think about longer term goals or emerging value if you're just firefighting every day, right? So
Mm.
it's really is it's hard to do this new genesis, new emerging things or think that way whenever you're constantly in firefight mode or trying to keep the company alive or trying to sort out P1 or P0 incidents all the time, right? Your systems aren't
Yeah.
good or your staff are unhappy and they're leaving or they're all fighting each other, right? So it's
And
it's
yeah. And even worse, what you often see is like, product A is actually incredibly efficient and running very well. So you say, I'll innovate the product B, and you just throw some nonsense out the door. And then we'll innovate again on project C, we'll innovate project D. The firefighting, it's not project A, which is running well. It's B, C, and D that you've created really quickly. So
Mm.
it's like, I'd say ineffective innovation is actually creating new technical debt or product debt. I've seen a few companies where they're successful and then they expand their portfolio too fast. And the original product that was successful is still making a lot of money, do really well, but it's all the extra stuff created on top.
yeah.
Mm.
That's the debt.
And,
So it
and,
is,
and I
yeah.
know there's a little bit of the it's not planner, settler, time planner anymore. It's about explorer, villager, and time planner.
Mm.
I think now there's a little bit of making sure that you have the right people operating in the right context with the right sort of
Mm.
products that have evolved appropriately, right? So and we would do this today. You want to get people who have that sort of explorer mindset doing the new emerging work. They're not necessarily the people who are doing the hey, just knock out another ticket and do the work that's very predictable and very repeatable. They're not the
Mm.
same people that you want working on the emerging value opportunities, right?
Mm. That's an interesting one. And then, so the three value chains in this map, just to sort of summarize. So on the very right of the map in commodity, you've got sustainable operations. Then you've got long-term goals kind of in the middle in that product space. And then way off to the left in the Genesis, you've got like what we call the land grab. There's a very specific reason why we put land grab in. So you're thinking, and then land grab is the emerging value. So it's like advanced practice will enable new capability, and land grab depends on rapid progress and like high velocity, which is things like a product mindset, a mission focus, and modern cloud. You've got the right environment. Uh, so if you think about it, it's almost like if things are running well, you are working towards long-term goals. What next? I mean, so what will be the next thing? What you often see companies do is let's maybe break into an adjacent category. So Jeffrey Moore with it was it the escape velocity, I think it was. Let's know we're doing really well. Let's go into an adjacent category. That's a whole business shift. That's not just a piece of software. It's a big shift. So that's what we meant by land grab. It's like there's an adjacent opportunity in another market that I could jump into. You see some companies doing that really well as they grow, the likes of Amazon, etc., and Microsoft and Google. They'll just grow and then just go into another category, which is and that's the land grab. So you could think of a CEO of a scaling very successful company. It's really about expanding your portfolio into a complete different category.
Mm.
And land grab is one of the Wardley's gameplay patterns, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, and a lot of that is just, as you say, like moving fast. And I
Mm,
think, like the evolutionary kind of stuff you got at the bottom around like product mindset, it's experimental, it's exploratory, it's, move quick, learn quick,
Yep.
apply what you learned.
Be happy
Um,
with failure.
Embrace failure, right?
Yep.
Failure is also part of learning. Um, and then even the modern cloud, even the concepts around it, again, traveling light. Um,
mm,
so yeah,
Yeah.
I think that works.
Yeah. And we're seeing and with we're reinvents on this week we're recording this, right? New capabilities are being announced or emerging. How quickly can you adopt to them to get competitive advantage? Companies who have sorted this sort of map out will be able to embrace those things and be able to leverage some of those things for competitive advantage, either lower cost or new capabilities, or going after new things that they never even knew that they wanted to get after because they've sorted this out. They've got their product mindset. They've got their cloud stance really well sorted. They're following all the serverless first principles and processes and practices. And,
Mm.
and they're very mission focused. So they're, hey, this might help our mission. This might help us achieve this next thing. Quickly
mm,
embrace this new Lambda capability that reduces our cost by 30% or 40%. That means we can do more something else, right?
Yeah.
mm.
And I think what we mean by product mindset as well is that you're customer obsessed,
Yeah.
right? So what works,
Yep.
what doesn't. And
Yeah.
it's not that tyrannical product mindset. Um, you kind of see out there, right? So I think that's important.
Mm. Very good. So what do you reckon on map end? Do you reckon it makes sense or it's blood nonsense?
Makes sense in second, well, reading it again after after a few years, like, but I think the pipelines definitely are always a bit of a
Pipelines are tough. I was never really happy with the pipelines.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I couldn't work out if they were the wrong way around or not.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, as you say, like maps are, you know, they're a collaborative kind of group
Yeah.
exercise, right? And if they don't have to be perfect.
No, if you're doing this for yourself, it's the conversations and the takeaways and the annotations and the notes and the actions that come off the conversation
Yeah.
around the map that would be the valuable thing.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was funny, like we had the operations dependent on the modern cloud pipeline. Long-term goals depend on product mindset and purpose. And then the land grab is on the product mindset. I think the land grab is a massive one.
Yeah.
It's I think that's what you really look for if you're when you're in an organization. Like you mean you assume things run well. There's always improvements you make around operations, but you'd assume stuff is working well. You like to think there's always long-term goals. People are thinking outside the box about what the growth is. But the really exciting stuff is the land grab. And people are like diversifying and doing really kind of really innovational things. Like change the color of a button is an innovation.
No.
Um cool. Well, so that's land grab. We talked about land grab. So we deliberately used Simon Wardley has a list of gameplay patterns, which I know we were obsessed with for years. I remember we always used to say, I wonder could you get the list of gameplay patterns? Would not be cool? And we couldn't find them anywhere. And then I think I'm not sure where they came from, but I think Ben Mosier on learnwardleymapping.com actually published a table of, and I don't know, did he take this from a book or what? Do you know, Mark? I can't
Not
remember.
sure, but they're there. There. If you look up the leadership section and they learn
Yeah.
Wardley Mapping, that's where they are.
Mm.
I don't think this was in the original book because I remember we used to always look for this. Every now and then Simon would refer back to one. You'd go like, that's
Yeah.
that one again. But I think this was published somewhere.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's so Wardley's gameplay, it's context specific patterns that the user can apply. And there's a whole bunch of different patterns. And then they've a bunch of categories. And I'll just name them. There's user perception, accelerators, de-accelerators, dealing with toxicity, market, defensive, attacking, ecosystem, competitor, positional, poison. Now, there's probably about 10 MBAs in there, I'd say.
At
That's an
least.
awful lot of, that's a serious amount of learning in a small table.
Yeah.
Anyone's kind of, no, we don't have time to do them all, but anyone's kind of jump, let's start from the top. Anyone's jump out at you that's been specifically interesting.
Um,
Well, you could do the whole fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If you
Yeah,
were that way
you
minded,
look at that.
you could see loads of serverless is never going to work. That'll not work for your company while you're off embracing the serverless first mindset and approach. And you see, you've sown enough fear, uncertainty, and doubt in your competitors while you're reaping the rewards of a very lean sort of serverless first mindset and approach. That could be something you could do if you really wanted to mess with people's heads.
Well, someone once told me that fear, uncertainty, and doubt was a specific strategy used against serverless.
Yep.
mhm.
I'm not going to say anything else about that. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing you would say about this is obviously, again, it's in order to use this properly, you do need to have really good situational awareness. And this is kind of what we're saying about mapping and, like who are the new players who are making the land grabs, like what sort of
Mm,
commodity plays are happening or based on where you are in your evolution, like how do we get to the next level and what
mm,
sort of game plays do we enact? Like, I mean, I haven't where I can operate within organizations, but certainly with there's one there like the open approaches, accelerators. Like if you look at what companies do there, like they engage the open source community quite a bit, right? Like obviously the big ones there, like LinkedIn with Kafka and
Yep.
the
yeah.
solutions where you're maybe not your business isn't event driven sort of middleware. It's HR or
Mm,
application tracking. So what you do is we're gonna leverage the power of the open source community and kind of contribute in. And I think they did that really effectively, right?
mm,
It also helps lower the burden of maturing or evolving that component, that capability to a more product or commodity sort of level, right? So you're sharing the load if you can get the community to embrace it in an open way.
mm. That's a
Mm.
massive kudos as well. If you open something up and it becomes successful, it's a massive draw for hiring engineers and stuff.
Yeah, Google with EKS is probably a good example as well of that.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm even wondering in the concept of AI, do you see any of these happening? Like if we kind of,
Well,
everything's
definitely
gonna,
market enablement. There's been a huge amount of market enablement, I think, for AI.
Yep.
yeah,
Like everyone's so excited about it. Everyone's helping everyone use it. I mean, people are very generous with, oh, here's how you do this and here's how you do that. Like, it's just moving so fast. Um,
that's true.
it's
Yep.
like what is it? It's an arms race, but it is like everyone's rapidly advancing.
Cooperation as well as a gameplay, right?
Hmm.
Yep.
Um,
There's
I'm
tons
not
of
sure about. I'm not sure I understand the de-accelerators an awful lot. Uh, Exploiting constraint.
reading constraints.
Some of these as well. I mean, you have to be. I mean, sometimes I think you have to be like a CEO of a company to really use these.
yeah.
So they're very certainly never done this type of stuff at a huge level like that.
Mm.
Um, I do think the dealing with toxicity. Sweat and dump is a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking a poke as well.
Yeah. Um,
Anyway, there's a lot there. It's well worth reading. It's well worth getting into.
yeah.
And noodling it. I think a lot of these were sort of. I always felt a bit. Never wanted to really apply any of these because it always felt a bit sneaky.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
true.
The one we just went through there really go down to ecosystem, like the innovate, leverage, commoditize, your sensing engines.
Yeah,
ILC is a gameplay, and I think we have used that one quite a bit. Um,
yes, definitely. And co-creation as well. Co-creation is a good one.
Yeah.
mm.
Alliances. There's,
You're seeing,
there's
you're seeing alliances play out in the AI space, right? Like
yeah.
big time.
But it's worth one, like if you have good situational awareness, it's worth starting to look at the gameplay and these leadership stratagems just to understand are any of these being operated on you and your business is maybe a
Mm,
good thing to be aware of, right? It's like,
Mm.
okay, well, what's the other person getting out of this? What's the other org getting out of this? What sort of strategy or gameplay are they trying to
Mm.
apply to me and my organization? So it's useful to become informed and understand some of these gameplays so that you can identify them as they're happening. Maybe you can avoid some of the more
Well, yeah, I
detrimental
mean,
ones.
that's where you get the big C-suite paychecks, right? If understanding where your product is in the overall value chain and what sort of gameplays are being played out,
mm.
you
Yep.
know.
There's one in competitor one about talent rate, removing core talent from a competitor, either directly or indirectly. You're seeing that in the AI land sphere
That's
already.
always been happening, especially with engineers as well. Like, I mean, that's an old playbook. I thought the positional ones were interesting as well, with land grab, first mover, fast follower, and weak signal horizon. Definitely looked at all those.
Yeah, exploring first mover advantage, and sometimes you let others go first, and yeah, you pick up the pieces once they've figured out where all the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Apple are brilliant at that. Apple are brilliant at fast follower.
Yep.
It's the old thing that there's very few of them technologies they've invented. They just wait until something's ready, and then they do a really good job of it. Like,
Mm.
done a very good job of that.
Yeah. No, this would be pretty cool. I think this is a nice like, kind of exercise to go through
Yep.
with these sorts of maps for sure.
Yeah,
Very good.
very good. So that's the crack then. Let's leave it at that then. It's a good wee one.
We're nearly
Um,
there. We're getting there. Getting
we're
through it
getting
nicely.
there.
Yeah.
So we're only just really one chapter left. Then we start to close out. Then see what we're doing next. Ooh, be exciting.
I know.
Cool. Well, that's the crack. Should give us a wee follow on YouTube or come visit us on the services.com and we will see you all next time. Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.
All right.